The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
All right, no Kyle Bowen today. And you know what that means? Me, Beggsy, I can tell my mom that I produced a podcast. Hey, maybe I did more than Elias Pettersson did last night for your Vancouver Canucks. Oh, no. Let's get into it here. Locked On Canucks, baby.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks writer over for Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into this episode of Locked On Canucks, we got to thank you for tuning into the show because guess what? It is your team. No. Sorry, Locked On Overlords. It is your Canucks every day. Again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe or follow us for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, also got to let you know that we are giving away 2 tickets to the Vancouver Canucks and the LA Kings on Monday, March 25th. Okay, let's go. If you want to be entered into the contest, you got to do 2 things, okay? First, you got to subscribe to this channel or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting platform. The second thing you got to do is subscribe to the Discord. The link will be in the bio shortly. I don't think I did it before I put this episode together, but it will be in the bio after we release this live episode. Elias Pettersson, okay? Again, not a great night for the Vancouver Canucks, but I think that Elias Pettersson drew the ire of a lot of fans last night. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. I mean, look, there's been a lot of hate in the comments towards Elias Pettersson and his performance with the Vancouver Canucks throughout the season, despite the fact that, again, this guy is top 15 in NHL scoring, 79 points in 67 games. That's nothing to sneeze at, okay? This guy, based on his trajectory, based on the fact that he could be, the first Swede in NHL history to have back-to-back 100-point seasons, he is a special player, but the reason why he frustrates fans came to the forefront last night, okay? And we got to talk about the Elias Pettersson problem and what can be done to fix it, if anything needs to be done at all. But I'll give my take on what I think Elias Pettersson needs to do moving forward. We'll also get into the Canucks blowing multi-goal leads, just blowing it. They blew it again last night against the Colorado Avalanche. Is this a trend that's a bit disturbing? And why are the Canucks starting to blow multi-goal leads again when they hadn't done that all year under Rick Tocchet? What's going on lately? Finally, to wrap up the show, I want to talk about who I think the most interesting Canuck is, both on and off the ice, okay? There's multiple aspects to it. Again, no Kyle Bowen today. He may do a live show later himself, but you just stuck with me, your boy Beggsy, right now. And again, I want to start by talking about Elias Pettersson. And I think the number one thing Elias Pettersson needs to do with his game is be a little bit more like JT Miller. JT Miller has been the engine driving the Canucks really since the beginning of February, okay? And when we talk about this Canucks team, I mentioned it on the show before. Shout out to the everydayers. They know this. But the Canucks are such a dangerous team. Yeah, but as the depth plays into it, but it's because they have 4 guys who arguably are MVP caliber players, okay? We're talking Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko. But really since February 1st, since the Canucks had this losing streak, losing 6 of 7, JT Miller has been their best player. And again, we talked about kind of who's been the Canucks MVP throughout the season. I think Demko kind of started off as the MVP along with Quinn Hughes. Then I did an episode specifically saying it was Miller. Then kind of midway through the season, now we're saying it was Pettersson, man. This guy was 3rd star of the month in January, 13 goals in 14 games. But really since February, it's been between Quinn Hughes and JT Miller. And JT Miller once again last night stepped up as a Canucks MVP. And we'll talk a bit about Quinn Hughes because he had a terrible night as well. It wasn't all about Elias Pettersson, but the reason I want to touch on Pettersson specifically is because, again, this guy got the raise, going to make it $11.6 million next year. Miller making $8 million now. Again, we live in a world where we know these guys' contracts. We know how much they make, which is a little weird. You don't know how much I make. I don't know how much any of you make, but we know how much our favorite hockey players make, okay? And JT Miller has just been a lot better than Elias Pettersson, both of late and arguably this season. You look at the points, right? JT Miller is now at 87 points in 67 games. He's ahead of Pettersson there. And he's taken on the tough matchups. And I think that was the frustrating part about the game last night. JT Miller matched up against the McKinnon line, did his thing, shut him down, created offense while going against the opposition's best player. Not only that, but a guy who is the front runner to win the NHL MVP award right now. And what happened when Miller was not on the ice? Nothing. Nothing, and especially nothing from Elias Pettersson. And Elias Lindholm can't escape blame either, right? You're talking about the Canucks' top three lines, this three-headed monster down the middle. Guess what? Both Elias Pettersson and Elias Lindholm, they struggled last night. But Pettersson in particular, being matched up against Casey Middlestat, doesn't even get a shot. Doesn't even get a shot at even strength. Outshot 11-0 with Casey Middlestat on the ice. Spent some time against the fourth line as well, and that's a matchup Pettersson needs to dominate, especially in a game against the Colorado Avalanche and Yakov Trenin from the Nashville Predators. When he was on the ice versus Pettersson, the Canucks were outshot 13-0. That is unfathomable. And I know the Canucks, they built this cushion. They're still one of the best teams in the NHL, still atop the Western Conference. But a performance like that against a contender, it's troubling. It's troubling. And you could argue game script plays into it a little bit, right? The Canucks build that lead. Maybe they got a little comfy. Maybe they just wanted to ride JT Miller's coattails for a bit. But we're talking about a team that's gearing up to play playoff games. Playoff games. And I know this core had some experience in the bubble, but it's going to be different. There's similarities. We talked about it earlier this week. Shout out to the everydayers. We love you guys. We love all of you listening, but the everydayers, you guys are amazing. But we talked about that experience in 2020, okay? It means something, but it's going to be different in these playoffs. Can Elias Pettersson step up and be that franchise center for the Vancouver Canucks? Because right now, he's not playing like a franchise center. I know I don't want to rip on the guy too much, but again, in a game like that last night against a top-notch team in Colorado, you want to see him give it his all. Now, I'll lay off Pettersson a little bit here because since signing the contract, 4 points in 5 games, it's not superstar numbers, but it's been good. But I don't think Pettersson's played a bad game since signing that contract until last night. And maybe there's something in the water last night, man. Maybe there's a pregame party going on. Maybe the days off got to these guys. They hadn't played since Saturday, then played on Wednesday night because Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, not only two of the best players in the Canucks, but two of the best players in the NHL, both had bad games last night. But again, I think this team moving forward needs to channel their inner JT Miller, okay? JT Miller. Again, the straw that stirs that drink, that stirs the bubbly, okay? The team's got to be more like JT. They got to have that. Where's the beat button, okay? I'm going to say it. They got to have that attitude. That give a attitude, okay? They need to care. And last night, it did not look like they cared. And JT Miller doing the most for this team. Got Eli Mikheyev to score a goal, okay? He's doing the most. And I hope that rubs off on his team. Because without Elias Pettersson going and being a superstar, this Canucks team can be good, but they are not winning the Stanley Cup unless they get superstar level contributions from Elias Pettersson. And hey, Quinn Hughes to an extent as well. Let's get into, on the other side, the Canucks blowing multi-goal leads, because it happened again last night. Who are the culprits? Why does this keep happening? Especially later in the season. We'll break it down on the other side. Before we do that, I got to show to our friends over at Ibotta. All right. Ibotta, okay? They're helping you out. The grocery store phenom, okay? Grocery bills, they're so expensive nowadays, but guess what? They don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app. Do you love making money but also spending money? Hey, don't we all? Now you can make money every time you shop with Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. Hey, guess what? That might be able to buy you one ticket to see the Vancouver Canucks in the playoffs and the nosebleeds, baby, okay? So make sure you're using the Ibotta app, okay? Join over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying the Ibotta app by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store. We don't discriminate, man. And download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONNHL. Okay. I'm back here on Locked On Canucks. Your boy Beggsy, aka Trevor Beggs. No Kyle Bowen on the show today. Look, the people miss Kyle, man. JS. People miss Kyle. He's a great guy. I miss him too. No, Kyle's he's got family stuff. He's doing the most in the show. I keep saying it. He keeps downplaying it. Kyle Bowen does 80% of the work on Locked On Canucks, okay? When I got headhunted to do Locked On Canucks after Nucks Misconduct shut down in February last year, I told him, I'm like, I'm not doing the show unless I can bring on my buddy Kyle Bowen, okay? And I think you guys see it here, man. The everydayers, you guys especially know Kyle Bowen does the most. He brings it. He brings the heat. And we're having fun here, man. We're having fun, and it helps that the Canucks have been winning games, okay? But that being said, they've been winning games, but they've also been blowing multi-goal leads lately, okay? And again, this team had a stretch earlier in the season where they won what? They were 28, 0-1 without suffering a regulation or without blowing a lead after two periods. It was crazy, okay? Like they had shut it down. They had learned to be a strong, cohesive defensive team, which is it should be the norm for an average NHL team, but we just hadn't seen it in Vancouver in such a long time, okay? You know, that 2019-20 season, we touched on it earlier this week, right? But you still had a top four of, Quinn Hughes, who was phenomenal, right? But it was also Alex Edler, Tyler Myers, Chris Tanev. I know Chris Tanev and Hughes, like they did their thing. They were great that season. Myers and Edler, though, they were both a bit past their prime playing top four roles for the Canucks. So I guess the point I'm getting to is we'd finally seen this team learn to shut things down. But over the last little bit, it's been troubling, right? Okay, so the team has blown multi-goal leads to the Minnesota Wild in that crazy 10-7 loss. They blew it against the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-3 back on February 27th. And then last night against Colorado as well. Might I mention, they also blew a lead to the Toronto Maple Leafs 3-0 back in mid-January there, but they came back to win that game. So should we be concerned about the Vancouver Canucks blowing leads now? If you listen to the show every day as occasional listeners, you know me, I'm probably more the stats, the numbers guy. If you look at this team, there's nothing that really suggests that their game has changed, which to me makes me think it's more of a mental thing. Because you look at their numbers and overall they've become a stronger, more cohesive defensive team as the season's gone on, which is saying something because they were pretty damn good earlier in the season too. Now, you could argue that part of it is luck catching up to the Canucks. Last night, penalties were a problem, and I know we're getting into the mode where we start complaining about the refs, but I don't really want to do that because the Canucks got outshot 17-3 last night in the third period. Good teams don't do that. And I know the Colorado Avalanche are a good team, and they got a little bit of life, getting a goal with 1.6 seconds left or whatever it was in the end of the second period. But that's when Rick Tocchet has got to go to this team, or the leader's got to step up in the dressing room and say, we got to put our foot on their throats. And last night, that did not happen. Okay? That did not happen. And I think this is, again, an important lesson for the Canucks for the Canucks to learn going into the playoffs, because you just can't do that against good hockey teams. I know it's March. I know they got the cushion. I know they're now 4-0-1 in the last 5 games. They're on a nice little roll right now, but last night was disheartening, as Rick Tocchet put it. Those were his words post-game. It was disheartening. And honestly, one of the reasons it was disheartening is because almost every guy on the team last night seemed to take the night off, aside from the JT Miller line. Pettersson line was bad. The Lindholm line was bad. The defensemen were turning the pucks over left, right, and center. Like, Hughes and Hronik didn't have a good game. Ian Cole, Carson Soucy didn't have a great game. Actually, the ironic part, Nikita Zadorov and Noah Juleson might have been the best pairing, but then Juleson was on the ice for all 4 goals again, so that's not saying much either, right? This Canucks team, they've been so good at shutting it down in the third period, and you could look at last night as a bit of an anomaly, but here's the thing. The Avalanche might be a good hockey team, but they were on the second night of backs-to-backs. The Vancouver Canucks hadn't played since Saturday. You would think that the Vancouver Canucks should have more energy than the Colorado Avalanche in a period like that. And what happened? They blew it. They blew it. And again, you could have some trepidation going to the playoffs, right? When a team like Colorado, who's been there, they've done that. They know how to get back in the game. They got the talent to do so, right? But the Vancouver Canucks got to learn these lessons, because it's not going to be easy in the playoffs, man. It's not going to be easy, okay? Now, I want to bring up this comment from Mike, okay? Mike says, blame Tocchet's system while being up 3-0. Let's stop forechecking. Let's stop jumping on loose pucks, and let's change lines. That definitely doesn't lead to turnover to bad penalties. A little sarcasm there. 17-3 in the third. Again, shots were 17-3, and I think what you saw the Canucks do was get away from their game. They stopped forechecking. It was let's dump, let's chase, let's have short shifts. But they needed to press a bit. They needed to press a bit in the third period and late in the second as well, and they did not do that. They did not have the killer instinct. And again, they were playing a tired hockey team. This team had no excuse to take their foot off the gas last night. And that's exactly what they did. I think my main takeaway here is that, as the Canucks play these good teams, look, we don't want to be over dramatic here, because, the Canucks 5-0 against the Jets, fantastic game. They were so good against the Knights, so good against the Kings. And then last against the Avalanche, they just kind of fell off the cliff. And sometimes that is a problem when you have a 3-day break in games, right? You lose a bit of that momentum that you had before. And you could argue that's the case with the Canucks last night. But, coming up here, they got a stretch where they play the Washington Capitals, the Buffalo Sabres, the Montreal Canadiens, and the Calgary Flames, okay? Over their next 4 games, all on home ice. Those are games that are all winnable. The Canucks could really put a stranglehold on winning the Western Conference here. And, restoring some faith. Again, not the fan base. We haven't given up on them or anything. Come on, it was just one overtime loss. But you don't want to see the team blow leads like that. And again, for a team that had not blown any leads through the first half of the season, they've blown 4 against some teams here over the past couple months. So put the foot on the gas. Let's go, okay? The Canucks need to be a bit more like JT Miller. That easily could have been the title of this episode too. Let's wrap up the show here on the other side, maybe get to a couple comments, and I want to talk about who I think the most interesting Canuck is, for good and for bad reasons, okay? Before we get to that, I got to shout out our friends over at Robinhood. All right, okay, Robinhood. Those guys over there. Okay, did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on that 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA is available To U.S. customers in good standing, Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Let's get back into it, baby. All right. We're back here to wrap up the show. Locked on Canucks. Remember, it is your Canucks every day. And I will remind you one more time, if you want to win 2 tickets to see the Vancouver Canucks and the LA Kings on Monday, March 25th, we're giving them away. No airfare included. No Costco hot dogs included, although we encourage you to get one. Save your money. Times are inflationary, okay? Get that cheap hot dog before the game. But if you want to enter the contest, what you got to do is 2 things. You got to either subscribe to the YouTube channel or you got to give us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. The second thing you got to do is subscribe to the Discord. That's Kyle Bowen's Discord, where we talk Canucks. And then Kyle's got, 28 other podcast shows that he works on. So it's a good community, good conversations. And hey, maybe we'll share some secrets about Beggsy and Bowen on there, okay? I'm going to drop a secret. And I think this, maybe it's a secret, okay? My opinion, the most interesting Canuck is Nikita Zadorov, okay? For a number of reasons. First, let's get to the off-the-ice stuff, and I want to talk about what happened on the ice last night and over the past few games. But Nikita Zadorov comes into this team, and the Canucks have that Instagram video about who has the best bromances on the team. And multiple guys said Zadorov and Miller. Some said Zadorov and Garland. Maybe they're being funny about the height difference. I don't know. But Zadorov seems well loved in that room. And then we learned recently that Zadorov has been the DJ on the team as well. So this guy's coming in, he's playing the tunes, okay? He's best buds with some of the Americans on this team. And then obviously I had the quote yesterday about Nathan McKinnon saying he's the best player in the world. Yeah, it was bold. It caught some headlines, but I don't think it makes him that interesting. I'm more so interested in the fact that, this team, we hear all this talk about, them being such a tight, cohesive group. And then you get a guy who's the second least tenured Canuck here, and he's one of the most popular guys in that room. So big deal there for Nikita Zadorov. But on the ice, I find Nikita Zadorov to be such a fascinating player, okay? The dude, first and foremost, is a ton of fun to watch. I mean, it's once every couple games you're getting this jaw-dropping, unreal hit that you don't see enough of in the NHL, okay? Call me a savage, man. I like that violence, okay? Even though, maybe I got little man syndrome. I'm about Connor Garland size, let's be real. But I love seeing those big heads out there. Look, I know Zadorov's not much of a fighter either, which to me is also kind of interesting. Just because he's big and he's willing to drop the gloves doesn't mean he's a great fighter. Okay, we saw that last night. He stepped up for JT Miller, fought Josh Manson, but it was another kind of underwhelming fight from Zadorov. And go check out this guy's hockey fights page. He's not a great fighter, okay? He's not great at dropping the gloves, but hey, he's willing to do it. And that's the important thing. But in terms of his game, he is, to me, a more physical, more exciting version of Tyler Myers. Let's be real. Let's call it like it is. And Tyler Myers has been better this season, but you still get that chaos in his game. And guess what? Chaos is probably the best word to describe Nikita Zadorov's game as well. The guy's been better of late, so I don't want to pile on him too much. But last night, I think it was interesting when you see the numbers after the game that the Canucks controlled 15%, 15% of shot attempts when Zadorov was on the ice last night. The guy had a goal assist in the fight, right? So he made an impact, but he was also making an impact for the wrong reason at the other end. Now, I think those numbers are a bit deceiving. I think Zadorov actually didn't play a terrible game last night, didn't have the egregious turnovers like some of his other counterparts there on defense. But again, he's just such an interesting player because you see him skate up the ice, you see him make plays, and you just think, holy heck, this guy could be like Zdeno Chara on some nights. And then some nights almost nights he's a bit more like Tyler Myers. Maybe drop a comment to me on the show here about who you think is the most interesting Canuck on the team. Again, I think it's Nikita Zadorov. And let's touch on a couple comments before I get out of here. Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. We've seen comments like this before in terms of Pettersson, but Popeye Sailor saying, said already, they should have traded for Matthew Tkachuk or another guy who can fight. I'm going to say this, okay, because I was pretty negative with Pettersson on this show, but you look at last season and you look at Pettersson's numbers and you look at Matthew Tkachuk's numbers. If the Canucks made the playoffs last year and not Matthew Tkachuk, I guarantee you Pettersson would have been a nominee for the Hart Trophy, not Matthew Tkachuk. They had very similar seasons. The only main difference was that, the Florida Panthers actually made it to the playoffs, and the Vancouver Canucks, they did not. Let's see what else. A lot of Bitcoin talking here. Yeah, Bitcoin is going up, man. I got from GL, Tyler Myers is painful to watch. Yeah, I kind of agree on a lot of nights, man. I mean, he's been better this season. Don't get me wrong. I did a piece for Daily Hive this morning about which Canucks are providing the most value based on their contracts. And maybe we'll touch on it on another episode, or you can go check it out, dailyhive.com/offside. But Tyler Myers right now, even though he's been better, is the worst value contract on the Canucks. So, last season, again, big improvement. I think last season his value was pretty much zero. Like, he was a negative value player at points last season. This season, according to The Athletic, he's around a $2 to $3 million value. So kind of a high-end third-pairing defenseman. But the problem is Tyler Myers is still playing top 4 minutes for your Vancouver Canucks. And that's a bit of a problem, man. That's a bit of a problem. And again, it gives me some trepidation going into the playoffs. Is the bottom for this defense good enough? I think they're better than what the numbers suggest. We talked about that on yesterday's episode. Go check that one out, okay? Because again, shows every day. You might miss a few, and that's okay. But we're going to remind you about them because we have egos, man. When I say we, I'm speaking for Kyle Bowden. I hope he's okay with that. But Tyler Myers, again, I think the defense as a whole, Myers, Susie, Cole, Zadorov, Juleson, that bottom 5, if you will, I think it's been better than the numbers suggest. But is it good enough to win a Stanley Cup? We're about to find out, okay? We'll wrap it up. Another episode done here. Locked On Canucks, your team every day. Again, 2 tickets to win, or if you want to win 2 tickets to see the Canucks Monday, March 25th, either subscribe to this channel or leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting platform, and then enter the Discord. I will put the link for that at the bottom of this episode on YouTube and on podcasting platforms. But for now, I got to get out of here, okay? Shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, the first-time listeners, the new subscribers, and those of you who join us here on the live show. I love each and every one of you, okay? Seriously. I would send you cards if I had your addresses, man. You guys are great. Guys and gals, okay? Coming up this week, Kyle Bowden and I should be back together. Maybe we'll talk about the Canucks, the contract value rankings, okay? But more so, let's preview the Washington game coming up on the weekend, and talk about, some lineup decisions as well, where Dakota Joshua fits back on this team. Always something to talk about with your Vancouver Canucks. And if you want to hear more episodes, hey, Kyle might even have his own episode dropping later tonight. But for now, that's it for me. I'm Trevor Beggs, a.k.a. Beggsy, with Daily Hive and here on Locked On Canucks. And I'm getting out of here, okay? You've been listening to another episode of Locked On Canucks.
Man, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight in Vancouver, all my real fans.